Group of dudes laughed about me buying a bunch of sweets. Dropped a nuclear bomb on them. That actually just happened today. I don't know which flair to use, and I apologize for my English, as it's not my first languages. I was in a supermarket buying a bunch of sweets. I mean it. It looked like I shoveled the whole aisle of vegan chocolate in my basket and dumped it on the conveyor belt. Vegan chocolate here is mostly small candy bars and way too expensive 100g chocolate bars. It was like 20 to 25 euros of candy. Looked a lot because of the sheer amount of candy bars. Was way too much, but not like a full conveyor belt full of candy. Well, in front of me were a group of older teenage boys, like 18 to 19 years old, talking, laughing, till they saw my sweets. Now they laughed again, but at me, at my sweets galore, at my big belly, BMI of 30 says HI. Normally, I would give them a sharp glance and say nothing. Not today. I had a kinda good day today. My shyness couldn't hold me back. I took my headphones off, I turned the music off at the checkout and only had them on because they are soothing for me, and said, "Kami, have fun laughing. But when you find out that you have cancer that will probably kill you, you are the first ones buying a mountain of sweets." Silence. All color left their faces. They quietly paid and left. I don't have cancer, just crippling depression. But I thought, what if they laugh at someone who has cancer? How will they feel? I don't want anyone to feel bad. But people who laugh at others, they have to learn what impact they may have. Maybe they will, maybe they don't. But today, I ruined their fun they had on the cost of others. Oh, I told the cashier that I don't have cancer. Just wanted to teach them a lesson. Apparently these guys are there often, probably after going to the gym, which is right upstairs. They had gym bags with them, and they like to make fun of others. Small edit, I know I have awful eating habits. Eating is a coping mechanism for me, and for others too, and I know it's not a healthy one. I know that a BMI of 30 is too much, and I know that it shows. I am slowly working on it, but everyone has fallbacks, like today. Regardless, no one deserves to be laughed at when they are at a low point in their life and or sick. Today they just laughed at me. Tomorrow they might laugh at someone who lost someone dear to them or who got a death sentence. I don't want that to happen to anyone, ever, and if it means bonking them with the guilt hammer, so be it. I don't wish that anyone gets a cancer diagnosis. I wish I could take the cancer and sickness of others onto me, so people can enjoy their lives. But I can't take that sickness from others, so maybe with what I did, one other person doesn't get laughed at, which is a win for me. Still, I know it was a nuclear option and rather insensitive, and I own up to that and apologize for it. As someone reported me to Reddit resources, I am fine. I will try to think optimistic and assume that it was out of concern and not to harass me. Yes, I have depression, chronic, had it my whole life, which is why I may sound cynical or pessimistic sometimes, but I am in psychiatric care and take my medication every day. Just forget my vitamins sometimes. But who doesn't? Gaming industry has been in a slump, and here's why. I've been in the industry for 20 years now, and have worked for various studios, publishers, marketing agencies, and financing agencies, with my work spanning well over 100 released games and hundreds more that never saw the light of day. 3 of these games I co-created have made the Steam 250 all-time list, IndieDB #1 Choice Awards, PC Gamer Top 100 Awards, etc. I'm not here to talk about myself. There are 3 main culprits I've identified behind the slump that's only become worse and worse over the years in the video games industry: investors, founders, and distributors. I think there needs to be a serious discussion about it. Investors, gamers themselves are highly aware of this problem. Investors want to reduce risk as much as possible, and inevitably this leads to sequels upon sequels, and clones upon clones. Founders, gamers have barely any clue about this issue. The contracts and treatment of staff can be awful, where they are viewed as dispensable or even with outright contract violations, rescinding of credits, non-payments, etc. Rarely are founders any more willing to share revenue percent either. The best and brightest talent eventually drop off and leave the industry. Distributors, gamers may be somewhat aware, but defend the monopolistic practices. The vast majority of indie games fail or stop development during early access because the 30% cut that Steam takes, on top of refunds, taxes, VAT, credit card fees. It is the difference between sustaining development and being forced to financially quit. Selling a game at $20 can amount to as little as $4 for the developer at the end of the day. A viral success with 100,000 sales might be only $400,000. That sounds like a lot, but over the course of 2 years and 5 developers/artists, you're already only just pulling $10 per hour while crunching overtime. Never mind paying influencers to sponsor you, and that sales stream eventually dries up as the early adopters pool is tapped out and regular gamers wait for the full release. The most insidious problem is, in my opinion, the distributor, which drives the former two to become ever more prudent and ruthless with how business is managed in order to make it all sustainable. And with such an oversatured market, advertising and promoting is essentially a requirement. The bar to entry is just too damn high for passion to make the cut. A great game does not sell itself anymore in a viral fashion. At the very least, you need to tell everybody about it. There may be a lucky game or two every year that captures the hearts of gamers, catapulted for free into worldwide fame. But in an overwhelming sea of 10,000 plus Steam releases every year, can you really pour your soul for years into a 0.1% gamble on success? Does the culture of Japan sometimes make you tired? It's morning in Japan. I get up, turn on the TV, and listen to the newsreader reading the news formally, leave home, take the train to get to work, listening to all formal announcements because I forgot my earphones, get to work, formally announce that I have arrived, formally greet my fellow coworkers and bosses before sitting down. The phone rings, immediately enters super formal mode, bow a few times even though the person I'm talking to cannot see me, and then apologize for a project delay. Enter work mode and be super formal for most of the day. Masaweki gozaimasen's like laser beams shooting out of my mouth because I keep making mistakes due to being overworked and exhausted. Shitsuru shimesu myself into the meeting room for a 7 p.m. meeting. Before Osakina shitsuru shimasu ing my way out of the office. Into the corridor. Atsukir a few people before exiting the building. Board the train home. Found my earphones at the bottom of my bag. So managed to block out announcements for the duration of my journey home. Head to the convenience store for dinner because I'm too tired to cook. The cashier is an elderly woman who loves using Sankigo, so go through the motions with her. I'm polite enough, I think. Get home, plug my dinner in the microwave, change to room wear, turn on the TV, sit down, and devour my bland oden. Listen to a bunch of people I don't care about talk in formal Japanese, and wonder why I'm still listening to this shit after I've just spent the entire day listening to and using it myself. Finally, I get my head down and dream sweet dreams of apologizing to my boss for not apologizing deeply enough to a client. Edit. I want to thank everyone for commenting and being super nice. Just want to point out, I thought it was obvious from how much I exaggerated the story, but obviously not, that this isn't real. I mean, it's grounded in reality, but I would have pieced out a long time ago if this was my actual life. LOL. I'm doing well and I'm in a good place, but definitely feel somewhat inwardly annoyed sometimes by certain aspects of the culture. I hope we can talk about those things in the comments. See you there. Take that, you shoeless asshole. This was about 20 years ago. I was going through security at IAH Airport when this well-dressed woman in high heels cut in front of me. This was before pre-check when everyone had to take their shoes off. I said something, like hey, she looked back at me like I was scum, shrugged, and said she had a plane to catch. I replied, well, yeah. So does everyone in this line. To which she responded, STFU fat ass. She went through the machine ahead of me, but something she forgot to take out of her pocket beeped, so they told her she had to go back and put it in the bin. She then started berating and arguing with the TSA people, saying she's gonna miss her flight. She was super rude to this 120-something woman agent who looked visibly upset. When I went through, her stuff was already out ahead of me, so I took her shoe. Just one. Walking quickly away, I was freaking out thinking, why the hell did I do that? There are cameras everywhere and I'm gonna get arrested. I had time before my flight, so I hopped on an airside train to another concourse and threw it out in a lavatory garbage. I had a carry-on with all my things, so I changed my shirt and put on a hat with my long hair tucked underneath, Mission Impossible incognito. I thought if they were following me with cameras, I could fool them. And I did. That woman only had a small handbag, so I know she didn't have an extra pair on her. Of course, I never found out what happened to her, so my revenge wasn't as sweet as it could have been, but I laugh hysterically whenever I imagine what transpired. I imagine her first thought was it got stuck in the machine, and I do feel bad if it held up other packs. But eventually she must have realized it was me. Lesson learned, asshole? AITA for having another kid and not spending enough time with my daughter? I, 29 serve in the U.S. Air Force and currently live in the U.S., but my 7-year-old daughter lives in Switzerland with her mother. Her mother and I met when I was stationed there, and our daughter was born during that time. When my assignment ended, I had to return to the U.S., and we agreed that our daughter would stay in Switzerland, as her mother could provide a more stable environment. For the past 3 years, I've been in a relationship with my girlfriend, and we recently welcomed a baby boy, who is now 3 months old. While I'm thrilled about having another child, my daughter has been struggling with the changes. I visit my daughter a few times a year and video call her multiple times a week. We've always been close, but since I told her about the baby, she's been acting out. During our calls, she's distant and often refuses to talk about anything. When I visited Switzerland recently, she was cold, avoided spending time with me, and said things like, "You don't love me anymore," and "Your new baby is your real family now." Her mother has also told me that she's been misbehaving at school, getting into trouble, and becoming increasingly withdrawn. Her mother blames me for her behavior. She says our daughter feels abandoned and replaced by the baby, and that I was selfish for having another child when I already struggled to spend enough time with her. She argued that I should have focused on strengthening my bond with our daughter instead of starting a new family. I've tried to reassure my daughter that I love her just as much as ever. During my visits, I've spent one-on-one time with her and tried to make her feel special. I've also suggested bringing her to the U.S. for an extended visit so she can see where I live and meet the baby on her terms. Her mother thinks this isn't enough and says our daughter needs more from me now, not later. Balancing everything has been incredibly hard. My Air Force duties are demanding, and while I've done my best to stay connected, I know it's not the same as being there in person. At the same time, I want to be present for my girlfriend and our baby, who also need me. Am I the A** hole for having another child and not being able to spend as much time with my daughter as she needs? Update: found wife's text messages. The link to my previous post won't work, so please view my profile for a refresher. Sorry. Alright, I know it's been a while since updating and plenty have asked. I have something of an avoidant attachment style, and I've been avoiding updating because there hasn't been any real conclusions to satisfy you all. Be forewarned. The day of posting this, my wife came home that evening. We were silent to each other all evening until my son went to bed. I could tell she knew something was up, but thought that it was just the way the morning was a little weird when I addressed her about the cheating dream I had. I also went to bed, trying to hold back what I was feeling and keeping my cards close to my chest. But I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs and asked her what was wrong, and she finally broke down. She said she knew I sent those screenshotted texts to myself because I forgot to delete one of them. She saw half of the screenshots I sent myself while at work and instantly knew the situation was way worse, hence the whole silent treatment thing. She noted I wasn't wearing my wedding band. That was intentional, of course. She began apologizing profusely and claimed she didn't even know she sent those messages, that she was very drunk and blacked it all out. She didn't delete the messages I saw because she didn't recall ever sending them. Her words. It kind of makes sense based on what she said, as some of you pointed out how juvenile the texts she sent were. It's not how she usually talks, but she was very drunk. She also has a history of making very poor decisions when drinking. She opened up about how this was a terrible mistake and that she didn't mean any of the things she said, that this was literally the first time they ever talked outside of the friend group hangouts, and I'm inclined to believe that. I could tell she didn't know that there is a recently deleted inbox in her phone, and I was able to see all of the chat history from M, and this was genuinely the first conversation. I checked her phone again to see what else she deleted, and it was only the messages I had screenshotted and some messages to my sister, reminder, they are very close, about how royally fucked she is. We talked at length that night about everything. She listed a volley of different reasons why she possibly could have done what she did. She highly resented any suggestion that drunk words are sober thoughts and disagreed with that statement completely, at least within the context of this argument. She has since come to the conclusion that she found M relatable and that they were, or are, both sort of lost in their lives. I guess I was surprised to find out that she feels so lost, as the only thing she could reason was that her job was not what she wanted to do with her life. But we agreed that we'd all go to therapy since then. Especially her. She is actively going to therapy. She also decided that she would quit drinking, and has been doing very well with that. I still need so much therapy, and we still need to do couples therapy, but it's a good first step in the right direction. I don't have any concerns about her loyalty at the moment, though there are times where my anxiety makes me untrusting in our relationship. Shortly after this, my life came down crashing in all sorts of new ways I'm not ready to get into. It's been really hard to manage both problems simultaneously. To briefly summarize, I come from a background of religious, authoritarian/evangelical parents that have been heightened to a new level with the Trump administration, and I'm no longer speaking to them. But that's where I'll leave that. You don't have to be particularly imaginative to see how that situation is going. I'm one of many who have dealt with these types of issues. This is relevant to the story because my wife provided a great deal of peace and comfort to me in these times where I felt like there was no one else to have my back. We sort of strengthened a lot of the relationship that was in really poor shape, and we are still working out our relational problems. All that is to say, I'm not exactly sure what I want out of my marriage anymore. We are working to figure things out, and only time will tell if we do. I know this doesn't provide you Redditors with any satisfactory closure, but hopefully will bring you to some satisfaction in knowing what has progressed these last 4 months. Broke up after 9 years. My boyfriend and I met in college. We loved each other very much. We lived together for many years, but we didn't seriously discuss marriage until our friends started getting engaged/we all were close to turning 30. Around that time, he got a job offer abroad. I told him I didn't want to move abroad with him unless we were going to get married. About 8 months later, I did end up moving abroad with him anyway, without being engaged. While I was there, I realized this was his life, and he was happy, but it was not my life. He called my parents and asked for their blessing to propose, but I felt like it was already too late. I wished he would have proposed without me essentially having to give an ultimatum. Every time we talked about it felt like pulling teeth. We broke up before he bought the ring. It's been a couple years since the breakup now. I'm here to tell all of you wondering. I am so happy we did not get married. It is really hard to be turning 30, 9 years into a relationship, and walk away, but I followed my gut, and I have never been happier. Of course, I wish him all the best. Sometimes, he's just your college boyfriend after all, and that's beautiful too.